Welcome to my presentation for the Whiteness Research Symposium. The article that I examined is Re-Beginning and Becoming: Anti-Racism and Professional Development with White Practicing Teachers by Shannick McManaman and Zachary Casey. The research in this article is looking at developing PD for in-service teachers on becoming anti-racist teachers. They say despite worthy aims and a commitment to equitable education for all students, such PD largely fails at sustaining ongoing work to combat structural racism. They say that the PD that is currently given is not based on educational foundations and theories as it should be. A lot of it is a one-off in service. It is brought by an expert that comes in and leaves, or it's the same message of Racism 101. It needs to be different. The authors were the two facilitators of this study, and they recruited a group of teachers to partake in the study with them. And what their recruitment goal was to find teachers committed to learning more about whiteness and working towards anti-racism. And through that, they found 8 white female teachers from 8 different districts throughout the Midwest United States. And they met 3 hours monthly during 2 school years, 2012-2013 and 2013-2014. These teachers were all also from a variety of elementary schools and high schools, urban and suburban. So there was a lot of different bases covered with this group. The goal of this study was to develop a meaningful PD experience focusing on practicing teachers' white racial identities and their impact on teaching practices that would empower teachers to undertake structural anti-racist changes in their classrooms and schools. And in this, they were examining the complexities that come along with a white racial identity, particularly looking at teachers' lived experiences as well as the context in which they are teaching. The study was conducted through a 2-year voluntary professional development model called RACEwork, Understanding Ourselves, Our Classrooms, and Our Culture. It used a tripartite model looking at 3 levels: within ourselves, within our classroom and our teaching, and the larger structure of society and history, and race at those 3 different levels. The teachers were to design and implement ongoing anti-racist reflective practices in their classrooms and their teaching. They met monthly where they discussed problems or situations that came up, and they noted that many of the problems were unresolved or not easy fixes, but through storytelling and shared experiences within the group, they were able to discuss those situations. The data was taken from these monthly meetings, which were recorded, as well as interviews with the teachers, formal and informal evaluations. They collected artifacts from the teachers in the schools. The facilitators did field notes, and they did a debrief and planning monthly. And it was based on a lot of inquiry from the teachers as to where they were going next. The conceptual framework for this study is centered on educational foundations and curriculum theory as the basis for the professional development, with the purpose of building capacity for teaching anti-racist education and using the foundations and the theory to fill in the gaps of what is being offered that is being missed out on. A quote from the article says, "Our approach to educational foundations centers curriculum theory as a way of making meaning of experiences and contexts that are often left out of hegemonic best practices for teachers and teacher education." When we're looking at the key findings, I think it's important to note that in the literacy review, there's very few peer-reviewed articles that have been published about ongoing educational PD for white practicing teachers based on race. The biggest key finding was accountability. This was not set out to be something that the facilitators were looking for or putting pressure on, but the teachers that were all involved in the study kept saying that how accountability was such a big piece, not to the facilitators, but to each other in the group, and doing the work to come to the monthly meetings with something to discuss so that they would have something to say. And they felt that it was important to be accountable to those others in their group, even with the vulnerability that it brought. Even as they continued to struggle with the idea that there was no easy answers in anti-racist work, that this is always a process. And that was another thing that kept coming back in the article, in the findings, was the process of becoming an anti-racist teacher and educator. They processed stories together and experiences together, which helped build relationships and solidarity, all being very important things in the teaching role in the community, being having those relationships with your colleagues to get through difficult learnings and situations. They became deeper thinkers and kept working hard because of the accountability, and it increased awareness and capacity to respond to racialized oppression. So again, accountability was probably the biggest takeaway from the article when working together on a difficult topic. And an important quote that came in the article is, "Rebeginning both honors the experiences gained in processes of action and reflection in PD and classroom spaces, and recognizes the need for humility and continuous learning in any anti-oppressive pedagogy." And so that becomes the important takeaway of why this ongoing continuous PD is so important. One of the main conclusions from this study is the importance of accountability, and the accountability is evident in the role of educational foundations and critical curriculum theories in professional development. There's accountability in the content-specific nature of this study. There is responsibility to those commitments and the shared struggle and vulnerability that came with this professional development helped with the accountability to each other. It shows that there's a need for greater accountability for, in this case, the US teachers. And accountability became one of the aims of this study. Another takeaway or conclusion from the study is the responsibility to act on the racial oppressions in the classrooms and school and to create anti-racist learning environments. There's a call for action to actively engage to act against oppression. Another takeaway is that the PD should be centered on lived experiences to work through in your structure, in your community and society, what is happening and how we can work through those together. And that it is ongoing work to become an anti-racist educator. We are becoming anti-racist educators, and we're always re-beginning, but it starts with our experiences and realizing that if we think we become anti-racist educators, that the learning isn't done. We're not done yet. I will conclude with another quote from the article that talks about the accountability and the ongoing process of becoming and re-beginning. We are always in the process of becoming anti-racist pedagogies. The moment we think we have arrived is the moment at which we have stopped learning and thus stopped the most important teachers. What could this accountability, responsibility, and call to action look like in your school?